Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to our 13th realistic fiction lesson. You may be wondering, but Mr. K, how is Frog and Toad realistic fiction? Because frogs and toads don't talk. That's a good question. I want you to think about that. Because is it realistic fiction? Why is Mr. K telling me it's realistic fiction? Think about that anyway, because I was thinking about that. Today we're going to focus on making connections, and we're going to focus on two types of connections. A text-to-self connection and a text-to-text connection. Now, you all do this all the time. Every time you read, you think about your life and you make connections. That's how we comprehend things, that helps us understand, and that's what makes reading fun. So when you make a text-to-self connection, you read something in a book and you think about yourself. When you make a text-to-text connection, you read something in a book and then you connect it to something else you read. You connect one book to another book. So you have this worksheet here. You can print it out, write it in your journal. I'm going to stop saying that eventually. And post it to Dojo. You'll be making one text-to-self connection and one text-to-text connection. The text-to-self is usually a little bit easier, but I think you'll be able to do both. So, Courtney behind the camera, say hi, Courtney.
Hi.
Today's chapter is called A Lost Button.
Ooh, wait, let's see the picture. I'm excited.
Yes, you're going to have to make some connections, so
All
get
right,
ready.
I'm ready.
Toad and Frog went for a long walk. They walked across a large meadow. They walked in the woods. They walked along the river. At last, they went back home to Toad's house. "Oh, drat," said Toad. "Not only do my feet hurt, but I've lost one of my buttons on my jacket." Poor Toad is always struggling with something, I feel like. "Don't worry," said Frog. "We will go back to all the places where we walked. We will soon find your button." They walked back to the large meadow. They began to look for the button in the tall grass. "Here's your button," cried Frog. "That's not my button," said Toad. "That button is black. My button was white." Toad put the black button in his pocket. Now, I'm just going to ask a question right now. Why is Toad putting the button in his pocket if it's not his button? A sparrow flew down. "Excuse me," said the sparrow. "Did you lose a button? I found one." "That's not my button," said Toad. "That button has 2 holes. My button has 4 holes." Toad put the button with the 2 holes in his pocket. They went back to the woods and looked on the dark paths. "Here's your button," said Frog. "That's not my button," cried Toad. "That button is small. My button was big." Toad put the small button in his pocket. So right now, Toad is taking all these buttons, but he says none of them are his. Getting good shots on that, Courtney?
Yeah, definitely.
Good camera work. A raccoon came out from behind a tree. "I heard that you were looking for a button," he said. "Here's one that I just found." "That's not my button," wailed Toad. "That button is square. My button was round." Toad put the square button in his pocket. Frog and Toad went back to the river. They looked for the button in the mud. "Here's your button," said Frog. "That's not my button," shouted Toad. "That button is thin. My button was thick."
I feel like a lot of people are losing buttons in this little neighborhood they have.
That is a great point. Why is everyone losing their buttons? I have never found that many buttons in one day. Toad put the thin button in his pocket. He was very angry. He jumped up and down and screamed, "The whole world is covered with buttons and none of them is mine." Toad ran home and slammed the door. There on the floor, he saw his white, 4-holed, big, round, thick button. "Oh," said Toad. "It was here all the time. What a lot of trouble I've made for Frog." Right now, I wonder how Toad is feeling. Toad took all of the buttons out of his pocket. He took his sewing box down from the shelf. Toad sewed the buttons all over his jacket. The next day, Toad gave his jacket to Frog. Frog thought it was beautiful. He put it on and jumped for joy. None of the buttons fell off. Toad had sewed them on very well. And that is the end of our story. So right now, you're going to have to make a text-to-self connection and think about how you can connect this to something in your life. Maybe you've lost something and couldn't find it. Maybe you can make a connection with the way Toad is feeling. Like, right now, I want to yell because I'm stuck inside and I can't go to school. I'm making a connection. I didn't lose a button. I'm frustrated. Toad was frustrated. Courtney, do you have a connection?
I learned how to sew buttons last week.
Oh,
So I connected with the end when he sewed the buttons on the jacket.
that's a great connection. Good job, Courtney. You did a good job. 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 Courtney. That's Courtney, and she's awesome. So, and then if we had to do a text-to-text connection. Now, this is a little bit harder, and I'm going to think back to some of the books that we read together. Maybe you'll think of a book like Henry and Mudge. And there was always, I would say Frog is I'm making a connection and comparing Frog to Henry from Henry and Mudge, because I think they're similar characters, even though one's a frog and one's a person. But that's all right, because they act similarly. Toad, I'm trying to make a connection of someone that's like Toad in a book that we've read. Someone that's really grumpy. Courtney, do you know any grumpy characters? I know I should have thought this through before. That's why you're going to do it when you fill out your paper. Make a text to self, make a text to text connection, post it on Dojo, and watch tomorrow for our next read aloud.
Bye.